It was late evening, the kind of night when the rain hits the window pane in slow, uneven beats, and the air smells faintly of wet earth and candle wax. I was sitting in the living room, my hands wrapped around a cup of cold tea I hadn't touched, staring at the soft glow of the lamp. The house was quiet, almost too quiet, except for the faint sound of a phone vibrating on the marble countertop. I hadn't expected him to be home so early, and yet there he was, humming absent-mindedly upstairs. That's when I saw it, a lipstick mark on the coffee mug I had left to dry. My chest tightened, a small, unfamiliar ache I tried to ignore. I reached for his phone, lying face down where he had dropped it, and a single message preview stared back at me. "Can't wait to see you tonight." I froze, my fingers trembling. The words were simple, almost harmless at first glance, but the world around me seemed to collapse. I had known him for years. I had trusted him. I had believed that our love, our life together, was a safe, untouchable space. And yet, in that single moment, I realized how fragile trust could be, how it could shatter silently while you sat in the same room, unaware. My eyes flicked to the small red scarf draped over the arm of the sofa, a gift from him on our first anniversary. Once it had represented warmth, love, devotion. Now it felt like a symbol of everything I had lost. I didn't scream. I didn't storm upstairs. I simply sank into the sofa, letting the shock wash over me. The rain outside intensified, tapping against the glass as though it knew the storm that had begun inside me. And in that quiet, lonely, trembling instant, I made a promise to myself. He would never see it coming, through the curtains. The quiet hum of the coffee maker, the smell of freshly baked bread from the small bakery down the street. Life had its predictable rhythm, and I cherished it. My husband, David, had always admired my attention to detail, my ability to create a home that felt like a warm embrace. Friends often said we were perfect together, and I had believed it too. Our marriage had begun with promises whispered under starlit skies, laughter echoing across park benches, and shared dreams that felt larger than the city itself. We had built a life that, to outsiders, seemed unshakable. He was ambitious, yes, and sometimes stern, but I had believed that his drive was a testament to his love, a desire to provide, protect, and secure our future. I would smile at his jokes even when they were poorly timed, and he would leave me notes tucked into my coat pockets, little reminders that I was cherished. And yet, beneath the surface, small fissures had begun to form. The late nights at work that stretched longer than necessary, the hushed phone calls I overheard but dismissed as routine, the subtle impatience when I refused his requests. All these were moments I buried beneath the comfort of routine and faith. David had always expected obedience in our home, a quiet compliance that I had often provided, though not without questioning. There were times when I had hesitated, when I had said no to something trivial, a dinner party, a social gathering, or a weekend trip, and seen the shadow of irritation cross his face. I had learned to navigate it, to smile and nod, to keep the peace. Our friends and family never noticed the tension. My parents often praised him for being decisive and strong, while David's family seemed charmed by my willingness to keep harmony. At the surface, everything appeared perfect. I wore my love for him like a shield, and he wore his authority like a badge of pride. It was a delicate balance, a dance in which I had learned every step. The red scarf, now draped across the sofa, had once been a symbol of his devotion. He had given it to me on our first anniversary, saying it reminded him of the warmth he felt whenever we were together. At the time, I had laughed at the sentimentality, wrapping it around my shoulders, and thinking how lucky I was to have a husband who could both challenge me and cherish me. But even then, there were moments when his care felt like a measure of control. Every compliment came with expectation, every gift, a reminder of indebtedness. I worked hard to maintain the equilibrium, often sacrificing my own wants for the sake of peace. I had a small career, part-time consulting that I loved, but David's subtle disapproval of my ambitions reminded me that independence was tolerated only within boundaries he set. And I had agreed, for love, for comfort, for the life we had built together. I had agreed, until that night. Evenings that were once filled with shared laughter had started to feel empty. The silences between us, once comfortable, had grown heavier. I would watch him across the dinner table, noticing the way his gaze lingered on the phone more than on me, and feel a quiet pang of unease. I had told myself it was nothing, that stress at work, a long day, fleeting distraction. But deep down, a whisper of doubt had begun to echo in my mind. And so, on that rainy evening, as the first signs of betrayal became impossible to ignore, I realized that the life I had trusted so completely had been built on fragile foundations. The routines, the gifts, the laughter. They had masked a growing disconnect I had failed to see. The red scarf, once a token of love, now reminded me of everything I had overlooked, every small compromise, every silent submission that had led to this moment. It was in that stillness, with the rain drumming a relentless rhythm against the window, that I understood the truth. My life as I knew it was changing. The calm, predictable world I had created was gone, replaced by a tension I could no longer ignore. And within me, beneath the shock and hurt, a quiet determination began to form. A resolve to reclaim my power, to confront the betrayal, and to ensure that he would never underestimate me again. Life outside our home had its own pressures. David's family, though polite and charming in public, carried subtle expectations that weighed heavily on our marriage. His mother, a woman of precise habits and rigid standards, often questioned my choices, the way I dressed, the way I cooked, the way I managed the home. She meant well, she claimed, but her words often felt like invisible chains, reminding me that perfection was never enough. I smiled through the critiques, nodded in agreement, and tucked my irritation deep within. I had learned that outward compliance kept the peace, even if it meant swallowing my pride. Friends, too, carried opinions. They praised David for his ambition and determination, often overlooking the quiet ways he demanded control at home. "He's a strong man," they would say, as if his strength justified the tension I felt in the house. And I would smile politely, hiding the discomfort and silently questioning the price of their approval. I had grown accustomed to the masks everyone wore, to the delicate choreography of appearances and polite words. Even within my own family, subtle judgments lingered. My parents had always valued harmony and obedience, and while they loved me dearly, I sensed a quiet disappointment whenever I resisted compromise for the sake of my own will. The world seemed to believe that a woman's happiness was measured by her willingness to submit, and for years, I had straddled the line between duty and desire. I had acquiesced, I had adjusted, and I had hoped that love would always outweigh expectation. And yet, even with all these invisible pressures, our home had been my sanctuary. I had crafted a life filled with small joys, morning coffee on the balcony, Sunday walks in the park, evenings spent curled up with a book or listening to music. It was within these moments that I felt real, untouched by the scrutiny of others. David, despite his flaws, had once shared in these joys, laughing at my silly jokes, leaving notes of affection in unexpected places, reminding me that we were partners, equals in our small, intimate world. But cracks had begun to appear. Subtle, almost imperceptible at first. A lingering glance at someone passing on the street, a sudden defensiveness when I questioned minor decisions, an unexplained absence from the home on weekends. I had dismissed them, attributing each incident to stress, fatigue, or coincidence. Yet the seed of doubt had been planted, and it quietly took root, growing stronger with every unexplained text, every secretive smile. I also noticed the small ways our dynamic was shifting. Where once we had shared responsibilities, David began to dictate more of our lives. Decisions that had once been mutual were now his alone, and the weight of expectation pressed heavier on me with each passing day. I had been obedient, not out of fear, but out of love, a love that had, unknowingly, left me vulnerable. And so, on the evening of the storm, when the lipstick appeared on the coffee mug and the message flashed on his phone, I realized how fragile my carefully built sanctuary truly was. The routines, the smiles, the rituals of daily life, they had masked a growing emptiness, a betrayal I had been blind to. The red scarf, once a symbol of warmth and devotion, now seemed almost ironic, a reminder that appearances could deceive, and that love, if unchecked, could become a tool of control. In that quiet house, with rain tapping insistently against the windows, I felt the first stirrings of determination. Not the desperate hope I had clung to for years, but a sharp, clear resolve. The betrayal I had glimpsed, however small at first, would not define me. If love could be wielded as a weapon, then dignity and strength could become armor. And soon, I would ensure that every lesson he had tried to teach me would be repaid in kind. It started with subtle signs, almost imperceptible at first. A message on his phone that he quickly shut when I entered the room. A lingering scent of perfume that wasn't mine. A sudden late-night meeting that was never mentioned until the next day, offered casually as if it were nothing. I told myself I was imagining it, that the years of love, trust, and shared dreams could not be undone by a few coincidences. Yet, in the quiet corners of my mind, a sense of unease began to grow. A whisper that something was off. Something I could not yet see in full. I tried to rationalize the changes. Perhaps he was stressed, overworked, or distracted. Perhaps I was being too sensitive, too aware of the small things that might not matter at all. But instinct, that quiet, insistent voice we often ignore, would not let me rest. I noticed the way his eyes lingered on the screen when a notification appeared, the way he laughed a little too easily at messages I could not read, the way his attention shifted when I entered the room. I had loved him blindly. And yet, for the first time, I realized love could also blind you to what was happening right in front of your eyes. The first undeniable sign came on a Tuesday evening. I had stayed late at my consulting work, my laptop open, and the night pressing against the windows like a silent observer. David had promised to make dinner, and I returned home expecting the comfort of routine. The smell of simmering sauce, the warmth of candles, the soft hum of music in the background. But the house was strangely quiet. No candles flickered, no music played. The soft glow of his laptop caught my attention, revealing a message thread that froze me in place. There, in stark clarity, were words that no wife should ever see. Affectionate messages, plans to meet, jokes that belonged to a private world in which I had no place. My fingers trembled as I scrolled, disbelief wrestling with the certainty of what I was seeing. The messages were not a single lapse, a careless mistake. They were deliberate, consistent, and intimate. The realization hit me like a cold wave. The man I had trusted, the man I had built a life with, had created a hidden life of his own. I did not scream. I did not confront him in that moment. I simply closed the laptop and sat down, letting the weight of betrayal settle over me. The quiet was deafening. Every sound in the house seemed amplified. The ticking of the clock, the soft drip of water from the faucet, the rustle of the curtains in the breeze. Even the red scarf, once a token of warmth and love, felt heavier, almost accusing, as though it had witnessed every secret kept and every lie told. In the days that followed, I observed him carefully. I watched for patterns, for signs, for confirmations of what I already suspected. There were stolen glances at his phone, hurried departures, and the subtle tension in his voice when I asked innocuous questions. Each discovery carved a small piece of pain into my heart, but it also forged a sharp edge of determination. I realized that to respond impulsively would be to give him power over me, to let his betrayal define my actions. Instead, I began to plan silently, to reclaim my agency one careful step at a time. The most painful part was how ordinary it all seemed to him. He continued his life with the same casual arrogance, unaware that I knew. Each smile, each kiss, each routine interaction became a test of my restraint, a stage on which I learned the art of patience and quiet observation. I felt the full spectrum of emotion: heartbreak, fury, disbelief, and a creeping sense of empowerment, all swirling together in a storm I kept hidden beneath calm surfaces. The red scarf became a symbol of my vigilance. Every time I saw it, I reminded myself that appearances could deceive, that love could be wielded as a weapon, and that strength was often silent, unseen. It was the first thread in a tapestry of action I would weave carefully, ensuring that the betrayal would not remain hidden, and that justice, measured, poetic, and undeniable, would follow. And so, the betrayal was no longer a secret. It existed fully in my mind, A sharp, undeniable truth. What remained was choice. How I would respond. How I would reclaim my life. And how I would ensure that the man who had underestimated me would never again feel in control. The storm had begun, and I was ready to meet it head-on. It was a Friday evening, the house still and heavy with the lingering scent of dinner I had not touched. I had returned early from work, the day feeling ordinary, mundane, yet something in the air hinted that the ordinary was about to fracture. David was upstairs, humming quietly, oblivious to the storm that had been brewing silently within me. I stepped toward the stairs, my eyes catching a faint glow beneath his bedroom door, the unmistakable light of his laptop screen. I knew immediately what I would find. My fingers trembled, yet I felt a calm resolve that surprised me. Opening the door, I saw messages I could no longer deny. There they were, intimate words of affection, plans whispered in digital secrecy, jokes and comments meant to belong to a world in which I had no place. The betrayal was not small. It was deliberate, ongoing, and unmistakable. My heart twisted, a pang so sharp it stole my breath. I sank to the edge of the bed, staring at the screen, absorbing every detail. The conversations were filled with laughter, shared secrets, and plans. Plans that did not include me. I had always believed in the sanctity of our marriage, the unspoken contract of love and trust. Now I saw the truth. That contract had been broken, quietly and consistently right under my nose. For a long moment, I allowed myself to feel the full weight of it. Disbelief, shame, anger, grief. Then I noticed the red scarf lying across the chair, draped carelessly, as if mocking my naivete. Once a symbol of warmth and devotion, it now reminded me that trust could be weaponized, that love could hide cruelty. I did not confront him immediately. I did not cry, scream, or demand explanations. Instead, I observed him carefully over the next few days, piecing together patterns, noting every lie, every slip. The emotional pain was a storm within me, but it was also a forge, shaping a resolve I had never felt before. He believed he had the upper hand, that his deception would remain hidden. Yet every smile he offered, every casual touch, every routine interaction only fueled my growing awareness that the betrayal had awakened something in me. A calculated, deliberate patience. I watched him plan, laugh, flirt, all while believing I was blind. And in that deception, I found my strength. The world he had built in secret was vulnerable. And I knew that the quiet, patient woman he underestimated would soon reclaim what he had taken for granted. The days after confirmation felt like living underwater. Each breath was heavy, each movement sluggish. I withdrew from friends and family, unable to explain the pain, unable to allow anyone to see the fracture in my world. Nights were the worst. Alone in the bedroom, I traced the edges of the red scarf, remembering the first time he had given it to me. Back then, it had been warmth, love, security. Now it was a reminder of betrayal and lost innocence. I questioned myself constantly. Had I been too strict, too assertive, too independent? Could my refusal to always obey him have caused this? Rationally, I knew the blame lay with him. Yet the quiet societal voice, the one telling women to endure, to accept, to forgive, whispered in my ear. I felt small, powerless, invisible in my own life. But beneath the despair, a spark began to kindle. I realized that anger, though painful, could become fuel. The betrayal had awakened not just hurt, but determination. I would not crumble beneath it. He would not see me broken. In that moment of solitude, I began to plan. Slowly, silently. Over the following weeks, I became careful, patient, and observant. I watched his patterns, studied his weaknesses, and identified opportunities. Each casual lie, each secret rendezvous, became a stepping stone in my mental strategy. The red scarf, once a symbol of love, now symbolized vigilance. Every time I touched it, I reminded myself of the quiet power growing within me. I strengthened myself emotionally, reclaiming small victories. I reconnected with friends I had neglected, honed my independence, and practiced restraint. The emotional storm had become my teacher. Every heartbreak became a lesson, every deception a mirror revealing his arrogance. He believed he controlled the narrative, but I was writing the chapters he could never read. The first steps were subtle. A carefully placed message, a public nudge of truth, small signs revealing cracks in the facade he thought invincible. Colleagues noticed tension, friends observed a change in behavior, and the man who had underestimated me began to falter. I remained calm, always composed, allowing him to feel safe while the web closed around him. Each moment of his faltering arrogance became a quiet victory. He had taken my trust, my patience, and my love for granted. Now, every secret, every small act of betrayal was returned in kind, measured, deliberate, and precise. Finally, the culmination, evidence of his betrayal, undeniable and public, exposed in a moment that was both poetic and just. Friends, family, and colleagues saw the truth, and the man who had believed himself untouchable crumbled. Yet I did not gloat. I had sought justice, not humiliation. In his downfall, I found not only empowerment but clarity. I had reclaimed my dignity, my life, and my voice.